The story of any city can never be complete without the story of its music. Music City, y'all. Welcome.
My cousin acted that shoe, y'all. That's him.
Yo, what's up? This is Garfield Bright, Music City. The first episode is here in NYC, New York. And yo, any history of any city first has to start with its musical template. And why would New York City be any different? As a matter of fact, I'm standing in front of the world famous Apollo Theater, right? Opened up in 1914, but was not always called the Apollo Theater. When the Apollo first opened in 1914, it was leased out by Hertig and Seaman. They got a 30-year lease on the place. And they opened it as a burlesque club. You know, it was a white establishment. New York hadn't quite grown to be the black place that it was ultimately going to be. And so, of course, there was no admittance for black people, even in New York, in the North, in a spot like the Apollo Theater. But after the 30-year lease, somewhere around the 28th year of the 30th year lease, LaGuardia, the infamous, famous mayor of New York City, shut down the Apollo pretty much in effect because he had the anti-burlesque campaign going. You know, they wanted to make the city a different kind of mold, and that burlesque piece was inviting a lot of, you know, especially like on Broadway and places like that, a lot of the hookers and prostitutes or workers, as we would call them, were kind of like keeping people, the same way they're using gentrification now to get the element out of the community, that's the black element, so the people can come in and invest. It was the same kind of dynamic then with the burlesque and those kinds of like customs. They want to change the culture. So LaGuardia comes in, changes it, shuts it down, but it reopens in 1934 under Cohen was the original owner. And in lieu of the fact that there was a burgeoning, you know, African American influx to the city like Chicago and New York and stuff like that for the industrial pretty much piece, black people can get jobs, they renamed it the 125th Street Apollo Theater. And it catered to the black. They came out with the variety show format, and it was on. Many of the greats that we recognize in black music, in all genres of music, including yours truly and the group SHAI, performed at this Apollo Theater. I mean, even little Lauryn Hill, people like that have performed. The Sarah Vaughan, all of that, John Coltrane, Miles Davis. You can go Luther Vandross, Prince even. I mean, you can go all the way even further than that, like some of the, you know, Count Basie and the original pioneers contributed much to this space. But ultimately, even that dimmed down. Percy Sutton was a famous person. He he took over ownership in 1981 of the Apollo Theater. And that was a big move, a power move, because a black man took over ownership. And they ended up creating a recording studio and a film studio within the spot and reopened the amateur night again. And so, you know, for all those years with Kiki Shepard and rubbing the little wooden piece and Sandman, bringing us countless moments of just joy and laughter, no format was ever quite pulled off like the Apollo Theater. It never will be. And it's one of the hallmarks of New York City. And when you talk about music, you can't talk about New York City and not mention the Apollo Theater. SHAI, we even got a chance to come here and do a tribute to the greats. We got to do a tribute to the Ink Spots. And we were in here singing Java Jive, you know.
I love the Java Jive and it loves me. Coffee and tea and the Java and me. A cup, a cup, a cup, a cup, a cup.
Go ahead, boy.
Oh, Boston beans.
All right.
Soybeans.
Yeah.
Green beans. I said a cabbage and green. See, I'm not keen over bought up bean. Unless it is the silly, silly bean, boy.
And so in 1934, when the amateur night first opened up, I want to expand a little bit to just give you an idea of what was going on in the world. I mean, in 1934, we had the first Masters golf tournament. Think about that, Masters, the implications of that first of all, but we had the first Masters golf tournament. In 1934 also, like in Austin, Texas, we had the first laundromat being developed. Think about that. we also had like residuals from the Great Depression, and we had the big dust bowls going across the country. That people were starving and famine was rampant. But more prominent and probably more pertinent to New York City that I stand in is when Master Fard Muhammad and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad got together, and he was a student. You know, the Nation of Islam was up and running with Honorable Elijah Muhammad being the first one who was raised. And that was prominent because what that ultimately spawned is the 5%, you know, of Nation of Gods and Earths, which Clarence 13X was, you know, they call him the father, Allah the father in that movement. And hip hop that coming out of New York would not have been as impactful as it probably was without the influence of the 5%ers. You know, you got Big Daddy Kane, you got Rakim Allah, you got a plethora of people who, you know, the brand Nubians. You got so many people, even in the Zulu Nation, who subscribe to the 5% philosophy. And that style of mentality and that style of MC with the teachers and the consciousness, you know, coming out of New York, you know, created the push and the thrust for the type of early hip hop that we heard, the conscious hip hop. It came out of that mold, and I can't even imagine what hip hop would have been without the Nation, without the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's influence and Master Fard Muhammad's influence through the Clarence 13X piece, tangent of it, through the Wu-Tang Clan and people like that who were 5%, part of the 5% Nation of Islam. So all of that 1934 stuff was rich, and ultimately in 2017 I can stand here saying that I'm greatly influenced by that year, 1934, and one of the residual icons that came out of it. We're looking at the Apollo, y'all. Never sleep on your history. This is New York, but this is a worldwide thing that's affected. Apollo. Music City, y'all.
Yeah. Allah born culture divine. Self-synthesized, what's the thought? Through the pen, through my mind. And all good things in due time. Regardless how pitch black the night seemed, the sun still shines. I had to focus with my high beam to decipher life schemes. Life seems tricky, slickly make you die for nice things. Hold up, make you raise your hands, throw your soul up. Not your set, you not ready yet. Nigga, grow up, we dying.
Yo, definitely, when we talk about Music City, we could not miss probably one of the most important features in this Music City of New York. The birthplace of what has replaced pop culture as the prominent pop culture icon, hip-hop. The home of hip-hop is right here. Cedric and Cedar, we on the corner of Cedric and Cedar Boulevard, where a young man named Clyde Campbell, better known as Cool Herc, you know what I'm saying, was throwing a party for his little sister in the rec room in Cedric and Cedar Projects. And what came out of that is that block party that set off what we know as hip-hop. And he came out with the little, you know, 2 turntables, had the little merry-go-round technique, you know what I mean, where he was isolating the break beats and extended that. You know, you had the break boys coming out like forming and starting their little thing up culturally. Then you got Grand Wizard Theodore, you know, who came into the game with the scratching and added a little scratching, you know what I mean? And then of course Grandmaster Flash, you know, who just really perfected that, you know, that whole concept of like seamless break beats with the 2 turntables and a fader going between and the backspinning and getting it right on the mark where it was never no deviation. He had a formula for it. And so those techniques, no pun intended with the turntables, but those techniques is what spurred the creative impetus for what we know now that is taking over the world in terms of a cultural form is hip hop. I mean, and it wouldn't be, you know, any KRS Ones coming out of the Bronx, or, you know, anybody of that ilk coming out of the Bronx, or it wouldn't be no Nas coming out of Queens, or Run DMCs coming out of Queens, or even the Sugar Hill Gang that got put together, you know, early on in the days. It wouldn't, you know, Sugar Hill Records. It wouldn't have been no Lyor Cohen's able to, you know, do what they did. Rick Rubens and Russell Simmons. You know, it wouldn't have been people who can eat off of a cultural product that they don't even necessarily like. You know, that phenomenon wouldn't have happened. It wouldn't have been Timberland making a whole bunch of money off of brothers rocking their shoes. You know what I mean? It wouldn't have been none of that. You know, the pulse of hip hop, this is the epicenter. This is where it began. You know what I mean? It wouldn't have been no Wu-Tang Clan. You know what I mean? Buckshot Shorties. You know, like I said, Tribe Called Quest, rest in peace, Phife Dawg. You know, and the plethora of people. You know, even going to the West Coast with the whole Death Row era and the Sloops. All those great people. When the, you know, Grandmaster Flash and Furious 5, let's not forget the pioneers. Let's not forget, you know, Mohandas Dewey's, better known as Kool Moe Dee. You know, and the epic battles between him and LL and LL and LL putting cannabis out of business, and you know the list goes. LL had battles with everybody named Mama. You know, Mama said knock you out. It was like that's probably his theme song. But nah, hip hop is here, man, and it's impacted me as an educator. You know, it's impacted everybody around the globe. You know, even people who don't really know about it know about the fashion. You got Japanese people out there breakdancing their hearts out off of something that started pretty much right in this epicenter right here. There's a vibration that really took over the world, and I'm proud to say that I identified myself as being a hip hop head. And I'm standing here where it all began. Music City, y'all. Bronx, New York. Said you can see the projects. Big up. Don't stop. Don't quit.
Some niggas will murk you, stuck going in concentric circles. In the future tense, what you hear is freeze. Express slab by Popo, it's confiscating your trees, your burner, your stash spot, your score. Yeah, they want your whole soul till it's all gone, it's no more. Locked out is worse than locked up, hazy, grimy, credit fucked up. And you done got lazy finally. Out is worse than locked up, hazy, grimy, credit fucked up. And you done got lazy finally. It's a la born culture divine. Self-synthesized, what's the thought? Through the pen, from the mind, and all good things in due time. Regardless how pitch black the night seems, the sun still shine. A la born culture divine.
What's up, what's up? Of course, this is your host, Garfield Bright, Music City, NYC edition. And I'm taking you over here to Brooklyn. We in Fort Greene Park. So, you know, Brooklyn is definitely prominent in the New York music scene. You got such greats from like, you know, we in Brooklyn, baby. You know what I'm saying? Roy Ayers. You know, beautiful stuff like that. All the way, of course, through, you know, the Biggie Small situation, man. Biggie and Brooklyn go hand in hand like peanut butter and jelly. People remember the BK for that. But Brooklyn is long since in, you know, the jazz scene. I remember times when I would come to New York and just in the borough of Brooklyn, man, it would just be on a nice summer night, like an almost hole in the wall with the dopest jazz tradition ever. You know what I mean? It's just a musical borough. And it's full of greats that I haven't even mentioned, man. But Brooklyn is definitely a contributor to the landscape musically in terms of New York's greatness, NYC. We in Brooklyn right now, Fort Greene. Represent New York music. It's beautiful. Welcome to Music City, NYC edition. This is Garfield Bright, your host. And yo, of course, the story couldn't be told in New York if we didn't visit Broadway, right? The Broadway Theater District. Started in 1750, shut down briefly for the Revolutionary War, opened back up in 1798. This district is historic. I mean, the likes of, you know, well, let's put it like this. When it first opened up in 1798, again, the main things that they did here was blackface, which was a minstrelsy thing. You can get the Post of New York during that time, the Al Jolson blackface piece. Burlesque, always a big movement coming out of that old European tradition. And Shakespeare, of course, in the theater. So the Shakespearean thing eventually took over, but the main piece is the musical. The musical is what took off and what sustains Broadway. And you know, the most dominant piece in terms of what they show. And you know, you got black things that have basically made their mark here, like the Wiz has come. You have Othello, you know, who Paul Robeson played Othello. Dreamgirls of note. These are a few of note that we've kind of broken through Broadway, done our thing. But don't forget about August Wilson, people like that. Those are very, 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 you know, you have Denzel out with the August Wilson movie. But let's not forget that he was a playwright. Broadway was his spot too. But so many legendary actors and singers and performers right here. You know, Alvin Ailey, all kind of different people on this Broadway stage down here. You know, so gotta pay homage to Broadway if you're gonna, you know, mention music in New York. Music City, represent. Peace. Look, want to thank y'all for tuning in, checking us out, traveling with me and exploring all these boroughs in the name of music, uncovering all the different things and aspects that we saw today. It's a beautiful thing. New York got a lot to offer in terms of its music history.
Yeah.
And yo, indirectly, everybody's a part of it, man. You know, because it traversed the whole landscape and became international, most of it. So without any further ado, I'm gonna sign out. Music City, that's what it is. And I'm gonna go enjoy some more of this culture right quick. Peace.